Hello everyone, my name is BlackWatch and welcome to another episode of How to Play. In this week's episode we're taking a look at Megan J. Castellano, also known as Valkyrie. She's an operator who is about to get absolutely destroyed in the next update, which is unfortunate because I timed this video back when she was still pretty strong, but now with Valkyrie coming in it's looking like it's going to be pretty scary for Valk mains out there. But even so, she'll always be valuable in the meta somehow, so we'll find out how to play her just that little bit more effectively. So Valkyrie is a 2 armor 2 speed operator on the defending side, and she's a member of the Navy SEALs CTU alongside Blackbeard on attack, who I've actually done a video on previously. If you're interested in that guide, then it's sitting somewhere in the video library, and yeah, my most viewed video, quite exciting. So she has access to two primary weapons. One of them used to be an absolute melt machine, that's a SPAS 12 shotgun. It's a semi-automatic, so naturally now it's a little bit crap, but it's one of the better semi-automatic shotguns, but it's still kind of iffy. So you're better bringing the MPX, which is a pretty woeful SMG to be honest. It has really, really low damage. It's around about 23 points of damage, which is nothing. But it's also got next to no recoil, especially when you're using the compensator, because it completely negates any horizontal recoil that you have. So it is a decent SMG if you're good at snapping heads off, otherwise you're not going to have much fun using the MPX, but at the same time the SPAS 12 isn't exactly a good alternative. And then the only secondary she has access to is the Desert Eagle, or the Deagle 50, or whatever they call it in the game, but it's a big pistol. Come the white noise update, it's going to be more viable because the visual recoil is going to be toned down a hell of a lot, so you're going to be snapping heads off with this thing more often than you would otherwise. And the two secondary gadgets she has are Nitro Cell and Deployable Shield. Nitro Cell is the obvious pick here, Deployable Shield's a very iffy gadget, it's not really that useful most of the time. Her unique gadget is Gyrocam Mark II Black Eyes. Now, she has three of these, she used to have four, and these are deployable cameras that can be thrown and stick to pretty much any surface in the game that isn't an object that's out with the environment and isn't a little physics object. So if you put them on a file or something and knock that file, then the cam will just fall onto the nearest hard surface. So you're better sticking it in corners of ceilings and all sorts of stuff and making them as sneaky as possible. Strength wise, she's got very, very good intel, probably unrivaled intel amongst all the intel specific operators in the game. Those are your pulses, your miras, that sort of stuff. She's the one with the most consistent and easy to use intel gathering tool in the game. It's just another camera, and you deploy it, and once it's down, any member of your team can use it, as long as they don't use it unintelligent, or as long as they don't use it in a silly way. Yeah, that's probably the best way to put it. By tagging people. This happens a lot in casual, so Valkyrie's less usable in casual as a result, because you'll get players who are maybe less experienced or who just don't care, who'll tag using your black eye and it'll get taken out immediately. But if you can communicate that intel with a good team who are listening to you, then it's definitely the best in the game. Her gadget's completely freeform in deployment. It's not like a lot of gadgets which are contextual, but when you can throw them down, you can just throw it down wherever you want, whenever you want. And it can also be picked up and redeployed, but be aware, the likelihood is if you're going for a ceiling throw, you've not got arms long enough to reach up and just pluck the thing out of the sky. It's got to be within a reasonable distance. I think it's a couple of feet for you to actually be able to get a hand on it and drag it back down. And her last strength, which is unfortunate because most of the strength is in her intel being so useful, is that she has a good handgun, and that's really kind of scraping at the bottom of the barrel because you shouldn't be looking at the sidearm as a strength for an operator specifically, unless it's the likes of Smoke and all the people with micro SMGs as their secondaries. In terms of her weaknesses, there's, well, the most glaring one is her primaries. I'm not gonna lie, they're pretty crap. Like, this is the worst part about the character. When she had the SPAS 12 back when it was a sniper, it was a really good time, but you could say that about a lot of operators like Pulse and all the other people that had semi-autos that were effective. It was always really, really fun to run around with them, but ever since they got nerfed, they just don't feel the same. You're looking for about 2 to 3 shots from even just about 5 meters out, which is pretty weak, considering the low rate of fire as well, so you're going to be working at a disadvantage in terms of your gunplay as Valkyrie. But again, you know, if you're good with your accuracy and you enjoy low recoil weapons, then you'll like the MPX. And as I mentioned before, another weakness is the fact that she's abused by her teammates in casual very often. People just don't have the same consideration that they do when they're in their own ranked team or with playing with people they know. They'd maybe be a bit more considerate than they are in casual, because 9 times out of 10, somebody will jump on your cam, they'll see someone and they'll start tagging them, and that cam's not going to last much longer because it's got a bloody big blue light that is pretty easy to spot. And the other thing is that she's got a little bit of a steep learning curve, and that's because even though it's easy to deploy her gadget and it should be fairly obvious about what the spots are, it takes time to really figure out what the best spots will be. And so a lot of that's down to practice. You can also catch her from videos like this one, and you'll have an idea of where you should really be putting your cameras, and that's what I'm going to talk about now. So you want to aim for spots that are behind the attackers. Think like an attacker, and that's something you do a lot with operators who have deployables like this, and that's take their mindset into consideration and think, where are they going to be approaching from and how are they going to tackle your site? And however they do that, you want to put the camera behind them. So if they enter into a room, you want to have the camera basically parallel to them as they enter, and then you want to have it outside of their vision. You don't want to have it right in front of them, because you might have a slightly better angle for the approach, but the cam's going to get spotted very easily, because as I say, in dark spots and things like that, it's quite easy to notice the big blue ring that it emits when it's active. The other thing you want to do is try and put them in visually busy areas or dark areas. Those are the two options, because if you put it in, say, a wooden panel, an orange wood panel, I'll take Chalet for example, there's some walls that have quite obvious orange wood on them and floors and things like that, and if you put a black eye on that, it's going to stand out naturally even when it's not showing up. Whereas if you put it in a corner where it's quite dark or it blends in, or other examples would be on servers and things in some rooms. Some sites will have big server rooms and you can slap it on that, and there's so many different lights going on that it's actually quite difficult to spot the black eye out from all the other lights that are there. It would really take a bit of looking for to spot it, so they're decent places to put them. And try and decide before you actually go out. This is a lot easier in ranked because you know what site you're going to be on, but if you have an idea of where you want to put your cams, get it sorted out before you spawn in, because you don't want to be sitting there 10 seconds into the actual action phase and getting shot because you're throwing a camera out. It's the same with operators like Capcan. You need your gadgets ready to deploy and deployed as quickly as possible. She's a 2-speed, so it's easy enough to do that, but just try and get it sorted early on. You want to spread your cameras out as well. There's no point in putting 2 cameras covering one place because it's completely inefficient, especially now that she's only got 3 of them. You've got to make the most of the intel that she can get. Even if it's not the ideal angle that's covering everything, you're never going to get that. You'd be as well picking the slightly more optimal one and then using your other camera for a completely different spot, so you have more intel, and it's just going to be better off. You're better having slightly higher coverage with a slightly lower quality than super high quality for one location, because in the end it's not going to be as helpful. Good networks reach important areas, so you want to be surrounding the objective but not sitting in the objective most of the time. The only game mode where I would recommend having cameras on the site is bomb, and even then you should really have operators in there to be looking out for plants anyway. So cams are a bit of a risk on site because they get taken out by shock drones and things like that. So you just want to consider where you are, and if you think you need it to cover an area that you don't feel comfortable standing in, fair enough. I think cash room is a good example on Clubhouse, but if you're picking cash room, then you deserve to lose anyway. And put them where you fear pressure from the enemy. So if you're frightened of a particular push or one that you don't deal with very well, slap a cam there so any dead teammates you have, or even yourself whilst you're active, can check and see if the angle is going to be pressed in the same way. Because that way you'll be able to adjust for that particular push and maybe have slightly more operators watching that area than you would normally, so you don't get caught off guard. Don't put them near existing cameras on the map. I see a lot of new players slapping cams down basically right underneath the existing surveillance cams. The majority of players in the game, if they've had more than around about 10 hours, will know where pretty much every camera in the game is, and they'll know that they need to take them out straight away. So if you're putting your black eye underneath it, as much as it may seem like a logical place because there's one already there, that one cam that's always there is always there. It's never going to move, and having your camera underneath it is just a sign to say, you know, shoot me as well, you bastard. So don't bother doing that. It's not very clever. And just be wary of objective cams on non-bomb. If you're playing on secure area and you've got a camera on the site, there's no point. There's better options there. You'd be better putting one nearby, in and around the objective, so that you can see the obvious push points, and you can also make sure that you have an operator on site anyway. So basically, there's not really much more to Valkyrie. The only thing I would give is a couple of tips about using her weapons and the way you would behave during the game, because obviously the majority of her playstyle is through her gadget and her gadget placement. And the first thing is to be realistic about the weapons you're using, particularly the MPX, and I would expect you to be using the MPX anyway. It's the real viable option out of the two, which is a shame. But don't go out thinking that you're going to outgun someone who's running an assault rifle, because you won't. You've got to make sure that your crosshairs are placed either crouch head or standing head, and if you're not on either of those, then you're going to lose the firefight, because the kick vertically isn't really enough to adjust for chest shots going into headshots, or maybe neck shots going into headshots, but definitely not chest shots. There's not enough of a drag upwards to pull it off. So try and have yourself in a position where you're pre-aiming the standing head or crouching head, and you should be okay. But more or less, I would say standing head's the better option, because crouching head, if you fire and you're hitting them in the chest and you've thought that they were going to be crouching, you're still probably going to lose because the damage is so low. I think you're better risking that they're going to be standing up than not. And in terms of playstyle, I'd semi-roam as Valk. You can make her gadget most useful when you're actually taking advantage of it during the round. So not staying too far away from the site, but not staying directly on site, and just moving around the rooms nearby, and using your cameras to track targets who are going to be coming into your crosshairs so you can take them by surprise. As I say, she's not a good 1v1 direct firefighter, but when it comes to jumping on people from behind and snapping them up when they're not paying attention, when you know where they are, that's your ideal situation, because the gun's not going to perform very well outside of those situations. So that's pretty much all there really is to Valk. Hope you enjoyed this video, guys. It's gone over schedule again. Unfortunately, I've gone off schedule this week. I say this week, it's been about 2 weeks since I've uploaded. Basically, there's been a lot of things going on, and I just need to sort some stuff out before I got the video out, and my internet connection's been pretty crap as well. But I'll get this one uploaded, and then we'll be looking on some other videos. I'm going to put the Shield video on hold, because it's a lot bigger than I expected it to be, and it's going to take some time. So I'm thinking I'm going to just put something else together. We'll see what it is. I'm not really sure at the moment, but I'll try and get videos out on the regular as per. So catch you guys in a bit. Bye.